Awesome.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for your time, Nick. I'll try to be fast and concise because your time's very valuable.
Well, that's okay. Uh, so what can we talk about today?
I have a list of questions. And so the thing, first one is just a summary. You were very helpful 3 years ago when we met, and I appreciate that. Actually, what was that? Afterwards, it would be okay with you if I also get a copy of this the video afterwards. I can study it afterwards when we talk about it.
Yep, certainly. That's why I hit record.
Awesome, thank you. Um, okay. There's four basic things. The first one is just our general plan at a high level is to take Samsung Heavy Industries has been creating the world's largest and most inexpensive shipping container ships at like 165 million dollars for 24 TEUs, record breaking. It was OOCL, Hong Kong OOCL, then the MSC, and each year they keep breaking the record and they make them cheaper. So for the last one they came out with was actually slightly more expensive. Long story short, $160 million can have them build you one of these big container ships, which is surprisingly cheap considering, I mean, in America that costs 10 times as much. Or it costs the same amount, but it's 1/10 the size. Um, the plan is the big cruise ships we have out there that are basically floating cities. Those costs, the brand new ones that are also record breaking, like the Icon of the Seas, which is launching later on next year, is one point what?
So they cost more.
$1.7 billion. Our plan is to have all the infrastructure of such a city, but none of we don't provide the restaurants, the houses, anything. We just have the cabins that are multi-purpose, and the idea is people can build a city off of that. So it has the same number of cabins as these big, so 4,000 cabins roughly, but it would be based off of the container ship technology, but a lot more spaces and floors on every single level instead of just one like above deck and below deck and however they have those things laid out. I think they have like three each above deck and three below deck. No, three below deck and above deck is just at the deck, so you can't even reach up that high. So it'd be a different design. Last time we met, I mentioned it might be a little top heavy, so I put it in our design. I don't know if you can see the. Let me see if I can share my screen. Share screen. Host disable participant screen. I think you have to give me permission to share a screen.
Yep.
Try to have it smaller.
Okay, you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, let me try. Host disabled screen sharing. You might have to. I'm logged in twice. You might have to do it to both of them. I'm on my phone with one, and I'm on a computer with the other one. That's why it's twice.
Well, no, I'm not the host, so.
Ooh. Let me see. Participants. Host. Okay, so the cell phone is the host. Let me make the desktop the host, or I'll make you the host. Well, actually, I'll make the other one co-host. That should be enough. I want to give you the. I said make. Doesn't it just it's host or no host? That's too bad.
Yeah, it only lets you have one person be the host.
Okay, that's too bad. Let's see. This one should be host now, which is not my phone. Let's give it a try. Yes. Okay, can you see my screen?
I can see your screen.
Okay. This is the design, and I haven't really done anything with the design since we met 3 years ago much, because the idea is that we wouldn't be doing the professional design. Samsung Heavy Industries would be doing the professional design, and it would cost. I mean, when they build these kind of things, if they were to make this kind of shipping container and do it and And last time we met, I threw out $2 million and it was a head nod, but it wasn't really kind of, we don't really know. Do you have any idea how much a professional design shop, when they were to build these kind of mega ships? I guess it depends. I mean, the Ford aircraft carrier, Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier, I think they put $6 billion into the design of that. But I'm assuming that's not,
Oh no,
it varies a lot.
it varies quite a bit. Yeah, Gerald R. Ford is not a good comparison. Uh, that especially because Gerald R. Ford is more of a research budget than a design budget. Uh, in as a good approximate cost, you could say around 10% of the build cost for design. For something like yours, it's a little bit more novel. There's more that they're going to have to invent from scratch rather than just take existing solutions. So I'd say, doing some rough guesses here.
And this is all just estimate because it's Samsung Heavy Industries. We're guessing what they would be charging, not.
Yeah. So I would guess your design cost would be somewhere around 50 to 85 million.
50 to 85 million. Okay.
Yeah, that's assuming that you're having about 500 million total in cost for the full ship. Because the container ships that you were quoting, that 165 million,
mhm.
Well over half the cost of your ship is the machinery and the outfitting. And remember, the container ship is mostly hollow.
Yes.
So
Yes, and I got pricing from Blue Steel for the shipping containers that they produce. We can get 40-foot longs for about $3,000 a piece. We buy them in mass, and so this would basically just be a hollow shell. But it would have the space and needed so we can actually put hookups and air and all this stuff, and also levels on each level to be able to access everything. So we're hoping is that they can take their design and we can just make some, hopefully as small as possible, because they when they spit these out each year, each iteration is kind of just a flavor of the previous one. So hopefully they're using the same design and just kind of making tweaks to it. And hopefully we can, even though there are some, the hallway will be much wider instead of being like I think it was like a meter and a half what they have. It'd be like almost 3 meters wide instead of just small portholes between the going through the support beams. I mean, it would be different, and I don't know how much that would affect the structure and so forth.
quite a bit.
My goal is to actually hope to be able to get a hold of Samsung Heavy Industries and have them give me an estimate and find out how much are we needing to come up with for the design, and then how much for from the design we would know that the cost of construction is 2 pieces. But this is an unusual project because we're trying to get the funding for it, and there's one of two approaches we're doing. One is we find enough people who are interested in this, and they would actually it'd be like a crowd-funded project where they would fund for the design, and then the design would be given to everyone. And then the next step was to actually build it. But if it's going to be 10% of the cost or more, then that's a lot.
I think what you'd be looking at for an initial crowdfunding is what we'd call a concept design.
Yes.
So that price that I just said, the around $50 million for the design, that's to produce a stack of about 500 to 1,000 drawings saying, here is how you build this ship, steps 1 through 5 million.
Yes.
The concept design is much more preliminary. It gives the general layout of the ship. It gives the basic principal dimensions. Big items like what are you powering it with, how much fuel on board, all of your tankage and that kind of thing. But there's still a lot of items that are not worked out. For example, we'd probably say we know what the general plating is, the general thicknesses of the structure, but all of the little details of how do you connect your stiffeners, we haven't worked that out yet. And for a ship of this size, that concept design level, you're looking at probably around, I would estimate 75,000 for a good concept design. And that's going to be going into a little bit more detail to actually work out things like regulatory requirements for fire safety, items like that. And that I think is going to probably be the most helpful thing, because if you just show this picture to Samsung and ask them for a quote, they're going to tell you they don't have any reasonable basis, that they don't have any idea. If you show them a concept design, detailed drawing with specifications, that they can usually get a decent quote on. And it's also, they kind of use it as a filtering mechanism, because they know that you have to spend real money to get a concept design. So if you show them that, that automatically tells them, okay, this is somebody with access to money.
Yes, which we don't have right now. So that's the whole point. It's this thing's, stepping up. We've raised almost $4,000 so far, which we've spent on various marketing and meetings with you and other stuff with the project. And each year we're doubling what we've been able to raise double we did before. So it's a progress. We should be able to have all this saved up by another 3 years or so. But it's going to take a while. So
oh yeah. Unfortunately, it's an expensive game.
Yeah. And so we would need a concept design. And okay, so how would we go about finding the best deal for a concept design? Of who would that be something we would be hiring for a concept design? Or is that something that what we have here? First of all, one of the questions that came up is the bow. It was a lot of people that were working on it said that since we're going to be in water that is stagnant, we're going to be looking for those. Is gyre the right word? Where the ocean currents in the South Bay of Bengal, where the average ocean speed would be like 1 mile per hour. And the idea is that since it's too deep out there, because we'll be outside the exclusive economic zone, 200 nautical miles from shore, it's too deep to anchor because it's like 3+ kilometers down. In theory, you could do that, but that itself would be, probably $100 million just for the anchoring contraptions for that. So we basically just had this thing on the engines would basically just keep its position somewhat stagnant.
Right.
As it connects with other ships, it would just float and then it would go back to the place, but it would stay within an area, doing an average of about 1 mile per hour. At that speed, do you need a bow on your ship? It's kind of. I feel silly having a ship without a bow on it, but
you won't need the bow for the speed perspective at that speed. There are plenty of barges that go that fast without requiring a whole lot of power. One thing you might need the bow for would be how well this boat's going to handle in rough weather, because deep water doesn't stop you from having ocean waves.
Yeah,
in fact, it makes
this
the waves
area
bigger.
has the maximum wave height of recorded wave height of about 5 meters. And the structure itself would be about 50 meters high, 52 or 53.
5 meters. That was their max recorded wave height? That's pretty small for 200 for over
And
200 miles.
Yeah, the North Sea really skews everything.
Well,
North Sea is where they recorded the world record of 35 meters. And in theory, it went up to 50 meters. But there's whole places around the Mediterranean, the equator, where it's much, much calmer. And where we'll be seeking out those calmer locations.
Okay.
Okay, so if anything, I probably should put a bow on it just so people take it a little more seriously.
It can't hurt, yeah. But your question of where do you go for this? That's definitely something I can provide. Other naval architects can as well. That's kind of equivalent to going to a doctor and asking for an annual physical. Pretty much all naval architects should be able to do that type of a concept design. The biggest challenge will be matching up your budget to the naval architects. If you go to, I'll pick Samsung as the example. If you go to their design department where they are routinely expecting to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a contract, they're probably not interested in doing a little $75,000 contract. So it's a question of matching your skill or matching your budget to the firm. And I'll say smaller firms generally work better in that regards. But yeah,
Okay.
other things you can do to help keep the cost down for it. Be very specific in what you're requesting in terms of deliverables. When we think a large part of the engineering cost is not so much coming up with the design, but communicating that design in a rational way. So one thing that I would say you could probably ask for, it's very common these days that we will almost always do our design work in 3D. We'll do 3D models of everything and then convert that 3D design into 2D drawings. Those 2D drawings take an inordinately large amount of time to create. So you might consider asking for just the 3D model. I will say there's a lot of extra information we put in the 2D drawings, which is why we still do them. The 2D drawings are a good way of showing the intent behind the design. A great example for that would be in the 3D model, you're just going to see bulkheads, plate, 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 plate. The 2D drawing, though, you're also going to see notes saying, well, this is just a normal piece of steel. This one here is a fire boundary, though. So there's some arguments either way for those. If you're trying to keep the budget down, then I would say try to get a design without 2D drawings. But from the designer's perspective, I'd like it if you had an infinite budget and could ask for all of it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Always better if you have more. So basically, if you did a concept design and you want people to know that you have a concept design, so you take it a little more seriously, would you expect to see the 2D drawings with the 3D, or what about this yells that's not a concept design?
I would say definitely the lack of 2D drawings.
Okay.
Probably some of the critical elements that I would look for with a concept design are specifically detailed information about all of the tanks and machinery. And when I say, like, for example, the tanks, I'm actually expecting to see a plan showing here are the locations of the tanks, labeled 1, 2, 3, whatever, and here's the volume of each one, that kind of a thing. I'm also expecting to see probably some type of basic report about endurance for the vessel, how long can it run on the fuel it has, that type of thing. So that's some major items. And then I think probably the biggest area where you can save some cost is in what we'd call the general arrangement, sort of the floor layout, which you've shown a great example with a lot of this. A detailed vessel arrangement is going to show level by level right down to the broom closet sort of thing. Whereas the starting general arrangement, pretty much all we are interested in seeing is where are the hallways, and then you can just have rooms, saying put a giant rectangle in there and just a little note saying 2 people here. So that helps.
We were thinking about having this is the 2 holes down here, and this is it's hard to tell, but basically having the entire bottom section, which is 3 meters high, be a series of tanks for different purposes or heavy machinery that could be dynamically used. But yeah, I don't know where the tanks are on the container ships. How could I get a hold of the designs of some of these mega container ships? I mean, I've extrapolated a lot of this stuff from what I've seen and the cross sections and the images and so forth. But where could I get some original ones to pattern after? To know how they did it. I don't know where their tanks are.
Well, and it's tricky because nobody wants to the drawings and the designs are all considered private property. So the best way you can do is start hunting after similar vessels that are in U.S. government. Let's see. If you go to the two that I would pick from are the Liberty ships, number one. They're old, but the designs are still, the principles are still the same, I'll say.
The concrete chips? Those old concrete chips?
No.
World War II?
Not the concrete ones. They're steel cargo ships. We built about 2,000 to 5,000 of them, I think. So those were the cargo ships where that was in World War II, where everyone was complaining that U-boats were sinking the cargo ships, and the US's response was, "Well, we'll just build them faster than you can sink them."
Oh, that's cool.
So that was the Liberty ship design. Like I said, that was a U.S. government. The government owns that design, and that's one of the best arguments that you can use a lot is, unless there's a national security concern, anything owned by the U.S. government is public knowledge.
I'm planning, do you think there's going to be a concern with, my hope is that whatever design we do, in the project moves forward, the project is open design. It's open source. Everything we do, we want to make it publicly available. Once we get into the realm of having another company make the final designs, Samsung Heavy Industries do their designs, I imagine they'll be including some proprietary things that can't be, that even though we're paying for them to build it, we don't actually own the design, but we just own like parts of it, and other parts will be grayed or blacked out, whatever, because it's their proprietary stuff that they're going to build it for us, but we can't actually give out the design. Is that correct, or can we actually?
It's something that you can negotiate on. The standard way that most designers will do it is it's sort of like owning a piece of music, in that the designer still actually owns the rights to the music. They've just simply given you a license to use it. Same way with ship designs. Same thing you'll see on all of mine. All of my drawings have the same thing that says, copyright Data Wave Marine Solutions. So the standard is that the designer still owns the design, and you have a license to use that design until the end of time, basically. But that does not give you a license to then hand that design out to everybody. One of the things you can negotiate for is to get the copyright from them, or even just to negotiate for the right to share that design with other people. So that type of intellectual property, that is something you can negotiate on. It does drive the price up.
How about the concept design, the concept art? Would that be something that can be carried out? Would the concept art and the concept design be something, the naval architect concept design be something that could be shared out with the world? I have an open design, a GPT license, general public, GPL, general public license. Or is that kind of a gray area too?
So the concept of sharing it out with people is not exactly a gray area. Most designers, if they're charging extra, would be willing to give that out as a general thing. The main problem is the concern over liability. One of the key elements of the GPL license is that you get it for free. Don't ever come back and sue the original author if something goes wrong.
Yep.
As far as engineering goes, we're not allowed to do that. We can't just write a little line in a contract saying we're not liable. If anything bad happens with the design, the lawyers still have the right to sue us. And so
that's U.S. law, right?
That's U.S. law. I think there are similar laws in other countries. You start getting to enough complexity there where I have to bow out and say, okay, I'm not the lawyer. We now have to hire one of those.
I understand.
Okay. It can be negotiated. I would say if you want to go down that path, expect it to take 2 to 3 times longer to hire somebody for the concept design. Just because everyone's going to, the very first thing that everyone's going to say when you request that is they're all going to say, I need to hire a lawyer and find out if this is even possible.
Because of those laws. Just share that information. People will assume that you're making a promise. And so if something is open source, then they'll, in America, have the right to sue you, which is honestly awful.
Yeah, the general argument is that the engineer has specialized knowledge and we're giving it out to the public, meaning that the public would have no way to know whether or not it's decent knowledge that's safe to use or not. And so that's why the engineer is still ultimately responsible.
Okay. So bow, what kind of bows would be good if I were to put one on here? I'm assuming we don't want a bulbous bow.
No, don't bother with that.
I loved your video on that, by the way.
No, thank you. I would actually go with something. I would go with a bow design similar to the Great Lakes freighters, actually. They have a very rounded bow. So most ocean-going ships will do a pointed bow. But let's see. I want to see what happens if you actually click on that, if you'll get any decent pictures. No, not that one. That's an older design. Keep scrolling down. There.
So just a simple, oh, wait, so it tapers in just a little bit in the center?
That's not really the critical part. That one actually shows some signs of modification. What you're mostly seeing here, though, is that it's basically a circular bow. They're not trying to shape it or point it or anything. They're basically just drawing a giant circle, and underwater, they're just curving that down as well to match it. The design for that was originally based on the idea in the Great Lakes freighters. Those freighters spend so much time going at very slow speeds that there was no advantage to making a better shaped bow. And so in their case, it was better to maximize cargo area. And for your case, I think it would be similar, that there's not a huge advantage to creating a nicely shaped bow. You mostly just need something to break the waves apart.
Now, under the water, is this mostly just is it the same thing vertically all the way from the top to the bottom, or does it curve in at the bottom?
It curves in at the bottom. It just forms the bottom corner of a sphere.
Okay.
So it's, yeah, basically take a tennis ball and cut it out so you still have 3/4 of the tennis ball left, and that's about what that bow looks like.
Okay, cool. And is there a name for that bow? Kind of bow? Or
so boring that we didn't give it a name.
Awesome. Okay.
The best you could probably call it is a developable bow shape.
Developable bow shape.
Yeah. That's one word that will be a nice buzzword for everybody. The word developable or developable surface. What that generally means is when they come to the question of, okay, how do I take the steel and bend it into all these different shapes for this hull? Developable means that we have segmented it up so that all of your steel plates, you only have to bend them in one direction. Now, that might be some very creative bending. For example, you can create cones with a developable surface. But it's really useful because, more importantly, developable means that I can have very simple machines do all the bending versus plate that's bent in 2 directions at once. Usually you have to have welders doing that, and they're actually what they do is they actually set up the shape that they need on pins, set the plate on top, and then just heat it until it settles down into the final shape. It's a very complicated process of trial and error. So developable means cheap.
Okay, cool. That's all my questions. That was awesome.
Okay.
You said you had some questions about seat setting, maybe?
Oh, no, I was gonna say I'm starting to do my own, trying to put out some free videos on it as well.
Look forward to seeing those. Sound awesome.
Yeah, they're in the editing queue. Unfortunately, I've got about 5 or 6 videos that I still have to edit, and I'm suffering the problem of being extremely busy right now.
It's good to be busy.
Yep. It's a good problem to have.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for your time and your help, Nick. I do appreciate it. Is there anything you need from me?
No, I like what you're working with. I'd say, it was only took half an hour of my time. I'm not even going to bother charging you for it.
No, I want to pay you for that. I don't want to get it for free.
Okay. I mean,
I appreciate you you doing this for me, and I want to do it again in the future. So I want to reward you. So thank you for helping with this.
okay, fair enough. Yeah, I will work up the invoice then and send it to you, and it's going to be nice and small. So
I appreciate it, and thank you so much for your help, and thanks for your awesome online videos.
yep.
And I'll catch you online then.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Nick.